happy Wednesday. Welcome to this week's episode of Your Manchester with myself, Mr. Michael Adams, and
me, Miss Belinda Scandal.
Yes, so we've got a very jam-packed show coming up for you this evening, haven't we?
We've got a very jam-packed show.
Indeed, we're talking to three lovely people from 53-2.
We're also speaking about a very, very important podcast with the wonderful Emma Goswell.
And you have been somewhere rather special. You've been to Weatherfield.
I have been to Weatherfield, figuring out the culmination of one very, very important story.
Yes, it's already top secret.
Very
I
top
can't say a
secret.
word. We've also got the lovely Jas Nisick, who's telling us about a rather spooky cabaret performance.
It's all marvellous, and this is how your show's looking. Well, I have been very busy this week, Mr. Michael Adams.
You've swapped workplaces with me. You've been down to Weatherfield, haven't
That's
you?
why I thought I'd wear this hairdo today.
Well, it's
very Rita
Fair Club,
Thank
isn't it?
you.
Yes.
I think so too.
Now, if you've been following Coronation Street for the last, like over a year now, you'll have seen that the evil Stephen Reed has been on a murder spree.
That's right. Now, I have to say, in the next coming weeks, we may have a couple of spoilers. This one isn't a spoiler so much as a taster, as I wandered down them famous cobbles of Coronation Street.
Take a look.
Well, many of the soaps are gearing up for Super Soap Week. One particular soap that's gearing up for it is, of course, Coronation Street. Now, they're not going to do it in half measures. Let me tell you now, it starts, let's say, at 5th gear and quickly goes up to about 12th gear. That's what you're in a treat for, and that's what we're going to get all the gossip for. So stick the heck around. Now, if you remember, a couple of weeks ago, I showed you a backdrop from the street, which was through there. And it used to be, when it was at Granada and Key Street, you should just drop off the side and you'd see a combination of streets from Wigan. Come with me, come on. We'll have a little look. Yet again, another very fabulous street. Very, very fabulous street. Just ignore the noise of the tram, which I somehow managed to put in on the edit. And then you end up here, established in 1929 but not seen to 2014. What's it all about, Flowers? What's it all about? Well, I mean, it's nice to see you.
Lovely to see you.
I mean, what's really confused me is having spoken to you now, how nice you are, and yet watching you on screen and thinking,
Yeah, no, I get that a lot. It's just the writing, I guess. I mean, and I'm pretty good at being bad, I guess.
well, you don't get a better storyline than what you've been given.
No, honestly, when I was asked my availability in December of 2021, I thought, it'd be interesting. Stephen's coming back. I'll see what happens. Then I had a Zoom meeting with Ian McLeod in February before I started in May, and I think he just wanted to sound me out about this murderer thing. I don't think he didn't want me to arrive on day one and say, "You're a murderer." I think the blood drained from my face when it was. He says, "You murdered someone." I kind of, ooh. And then he talked on, and I thought, "This is the villain." So yeah, and just
amazing
manna from heaven.
This is just the weirdest experience of my life. It's the weirdest experience of my life, this today.
Have you never been to one of these things?
No.
Have you not?
No.
In all your years?
In all my years, I've never been to one. This is lovely. You've got your name on the wall and everything.
I know, I've had a bit of a look around, but not much of one.
At least they've not kind of done a picture of you with your big perm that you used to have.
Yet. I'm sure there will be
It's
something.
got to make a... Listen, we've just been watching bits and pieces. It's all very exciting, isn't it?
It's all going on.
I feel like I'm having to play a game of Cluedo because I don't know what I can say, when I can say it, or who I can say it to.
You can't say anything, you're just going to say tune in and watch.
Well, tune in and watch. There we are. We're done.
Strap on.
That's it. Strap your pardon.
Right.
So no, but it's immense,
We might
isn't it?
want to,
Well, why not? My viewers would. So it's all going on, literally, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. There's a lot for the residents of Coronation Street to absorb, digest, work out, put together, and then try and fix.
But you seem to have put it together just at the right time, haven't you?
Yeah, which you know is really handy.
Yeah.
Otherwise we wouldn't have had this, didn't you, Mum?
I know. It's all come about at the right time, just as you've discovered that your beloved Rovers has had a bit of a break-in. There doesn't appear to be anybody staying here at the moment, so what I might do is I might just break in. Oh my God, no, there's two kids coming. She's been tricked, she's been played by Stephen.
Yeah, she's been spiked, but she was on him right from the beginning, wasn't she? She was the person that was onto him and didn't trust him, didn't like him. So that's just been proven that she was correct.
She was correct. I tell you, it's all going on. There's one very unhappy owner in there at the moment, and I don't know what's going on, but it's very, very loud and very, very noisy. They don't seem very happy about anything at all. There's a right rumpus going on in there. Number 8, Coronation Street. They never seem to be quiet. I don't know what's going on. Seems like the family from hell. Hello. Anybody? It's all kicking off on Coronation Street. It's all kicking off.
So joining us now to talk all about a rather spooky Halloween cabaret show is the lovely Jas Nisick. Hello to you, Jas.
Jas, you've got a fantastic show coming up. Tell us all about it.
Yes, so it's Rocky Shop of Horrors, a spooky cabaret. So if you could guess the references, it's mixing the Rocky Horror Picture Show with Little Shop of Horrors, two amazing horror musical theatre pieces. So it's going to be a cabaret featuring stories with interwoven songs, and we've even got special guests of someone who works at the Karen's Diner who's going to come and roast the audience. We've got some storytelling, and we also have a special burlesque drag king performance from Bex the King of Elvis. So it's going to be an absolutely wild, epic night.
And Jas, for anybody who's been to your quirky cabaret in the past, how different is this show?
I would say it's obviously more Halloween themed, and it's going to be at Sonata, which is a big fancy cabaret space. So we're quite lucky to have that space as well. So it's definitely something that's more, I'd say, upmarket. It's a lovely environment, but we also have 2 ticket prices. So we've got a £5 ticket price and a £10 ticket price. So the £5 tickets are for students or people that are unemployed. So yeah, it's going to be an absolutely amazing evening.
Brilliant. Well, we're looking forward to this one. Tell everybody where they can get tickets, how they can get tickets, where it's on, and then why it's most important for people to come to watch this show.
Yes, so it's at Sonata Cabaret Lounge, which is just around the corner from the Royal Exchange Theatre. What was the other question?
Where can they get tickets?
Where can we get tickets? You can get tickets from Sonata's website, or you can pop through to our social media at 2BProd, TOBEE Prod. And the reason why you should come is it's part of an artist development scheme. So the artists will be working over 4 weeks through workshops. So half of the performers are LGBTQ+, and make up working class and underrepresented artists. So you'll be there supporting a really great community in Manchester as well.
Well, thank you very much, Jas. Now, this sounds absolutely amazing, doesn't it?
I think we should take a walk down there one day.
Well, you know, somebody's been taking lots and lots of walks recently.
Well, at his age, it's good for him to get out and about, isn't it? Here's our mark.
So we start this week's walk here at the junction with Oxford Street and Whitworth Street. And behind me, what is now one of the, swankiest hotels in the city, but it was actually built as the headquarters of an insurance company. And you can see actually on the outside of it all the symbols that show that your money was safe. Forts, big thick brick walls. It's a wonderful late Victorian building, and it's been turned into this hotel and saved for posterity. Why don't you go and have a look when you're inside when you start your walk? But we're going to go this way. Palace Theatre, one of our largest theatres in the city centre, dates from 1891. It was refurbished around 1913, and it actually closed in the late 1970s, and there's even talk of demolishing it. But a huge campaign led by Ken Dodd started to campaign to save the theatre. It was refurbished once again and still stands here doing fantastic business. Now, there is a blue plaque just up here. There we are, in memory of the great comedian from Hollyoaks, Les Dawson. Roy Barraclough, comedy partner, unveiled it, and I was here as a guest to see that unveiling. And it's lovely that Les is memorialised here at one of the theatres where he had some of his greatest performances. say when you're in a city centre like Manchester, you need to look up because that's where a lot of the detail is on the building. Down at ground level, they were built to last and they were built to impress as well. So this building, St James's Buildings, was originally built in 1912 for the Calico Printers Association. And that's a clue to what many of the buildings on this street were used for. They were headquarters of manufacturing industries. Across the road, Churchgate House, that was built for the Tootle Company. Some of you might remember Tootle shirts. And you came here for business, you went to see these fantastic, strong buildings and trust in the companies you were doing business with. So again, in the side streets along here, you're going to find buildings that are called Canada House, Asia House, India House, again representing the trade from Manchester around the world. But also behind me now is, what I understand, is a Scottish folk restaurant, McDonald's. But actually, if you look above the sign, you'll find a portrayal of what that building used to be. It was the first purpose-built cinema in Manchester, the Picture House. It opened for business in 1911, and the first film that was shown there was Captain Scott's Polar Expedition. And who sat in the audience for it but Captain Scott's widow? So we've walked along now to the junction with Portland Street. Got that cinema over there, but on the opposite corner was the Paramount, a big 1930s cinema. And some of you might remember the old Odeon that stood here as well, that was demolished only a few years ago. So you had that great sort of cinema-going heritage here. And then right opposite, one of my favourite buildings in the city centre, just because it was themed to sort of Venetian style. Like the sun is on it now, you see that rooftop. It is just like being in Venice, but drier. We've come just a short journey along Oxford Street, and we've already had, well, a trip to the Arctic, more or less. We've gone to a Scottish restaurant. We've just seen a bit of Venice. Who remembers Holland? Who remembers the Dutch pancake house that used to stand on this corner? Yes, I'm thinking of pancakes already. If you didn't know it, it was kind of rubbish and absolutely marvellous all at the same time, but I had to mention it. Now we're going to finish today in St Peter's Square. Why is it called St Peter's Square? Because in the middle of it used to stand St Peter's Church. Yes, it had a parish church right in the middle. And that was open from the late 1700s through until about 1907, when it was demolished, made way for the square and all the development of the town hall. But that's where it's got its name. So next week we'll have another little ramble through the city centre, but it's been nice to take you along Oxford Road.
This is my favourite time of the year. We're talking mostly about pantos, but one thing that kind of infiltrates the theatre scene at the moment is over at 53-2. It's called JB Shorts, and joining us to talk about that is these three lovely people.
Hello, guys.
Introduce yourselves.
I'm James Quinn. I'm an actor in the show, writer in the show, and co-founder of JB Shorts.
I'm Charlotte Linnigan. I'm an actor in one of the plays.
I'm David Tagg, and I'm also one of the actors in the plays.
Now, this must be amazing for you. How did this come about, and why is it doing so successfully well?
Well, it was the idea was from Trevor Suthers and John Chambers, two long-standing writers in Manchester, they themselves were soap writers, and a few writers got together and said, wouldn't it be nice to write something different for a change, where we've got a 51 with an ending, something different from the treadmill of doing a soap, which they all love. It's great work, but something different. And tried it in 2009. We tried it as a one-off, and it was really successful. And here we are. It's in the 23rd running, and I think what attracts people is that it's affordable, that you take your beer and it's very relaxed, and 6 plays means if one play isn't floating your boat, then another one's along in 10 or 15 minutes, so you're not...
A bit like speed dating.
Yeah, speed dating. Yeah, it is. It's kind of the short form that people have just grown to love it, and loads of people who never go to the theatre, wouldn't dream of it, have come along, thought this is great, and now saying, when's the next JB Shorts, when's the next JB Shorts?
And of course, for actors, it's a pleasure as well, isn't it? Because you get to create non-stop and create something that, starts off possibly, I can't speak, that starts off particularly short and eventually might end up as a full play somewhere.
You never know. I mean, I think what surprised me the most is the variety across the 6. It's my first JB Shorts, and I'm lucky to have a great piece written by James and Peter. And we started rehearsing a couple of weeks ago, perhaps, at the Edge in Shorten. which is a fab venue where we've been rehearsing, and we started off sat just reading, and the fact that something that's 15 minutes can grow into something that you actually goes so many places, and how much it's changed in that short amount of time to share it and then get to watch 5 others.
So this is only your first one. David, how long have you been involved?
It's my first one as well.
I see. A lot of our viewers will remember you from Hollyoaks.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
This is quite different, isn't it?
Very, very different, yeah. First time I've done theatre properly. I've done a couple of pantos, but first time I've done theatre, so it's different in the sense that, like, well, the first and foremost, you've got to project. On TV, you don't really have to, so that's like something I've had to get used to. But JB Shorts has been something that I've always wanted to get involved in, and I'm glad I got the opportunity now. And he's right, like the amount of writers and directors and actors, like the calibre is unreal, really.
Kicks off tonight.
Yeah.
And of course carries on for a little while. How do people get their hands on tickets?
It's basically it's We Got Tickets /JB Shorts, basically, and there are QR codes. If you go on various sites, we've got Instagram, Facebook, X, Twitter. You'll see the QR codes and the ticket link all over the place, and it's honestly, it's a good night, you know.
It is a good night, and they have been going on for a while. What is the success behind all this then?
It's just I would say it's just broad appeal. Whether you're somebody who's faithful theatre goer or someone who just likes a good night out,
yeah,
you will have that. I'm very involved with FC United of Manchester, the breakaway version of United, and over the years, this huge kind of cohort of FC fans that come down, some of whom are very cultured and go to the theatre, and many of whom are not, just like a good night out, and they love it. And there's lots of pockets and communities within our audience like that who just really look forward to it. You don't think sometimes we say with certain things, I should watch that, I probably should go to that. There's never a feeling like that with JB Shorts. You just know you're going to have a good time.
Marvellous.
Fantastic.
A wonderful venue, and credit to Simon Naylor.
It is a gorgeous venue, isn't it? And it's got it. I have to. I mean, we're running out of time, but I mean, it does go from strength to strength. This venue.
It really does.
Absolutely.
It's really kind of not stopped. Yeah, it hasn't. And they've got a lovely little dog there as well.
Have they?
Yeah.
Very nice. Can't beat a dog.
So appropriate, by the way, that David is in the raunchiest of the plays. You know, him with his Hollyoaks, because it is the. It's got the more.
Bit sex in there.
Yeah.
It's there. There we are. That's just got a few more tickets sold, hasn't it? Absolutely amazing. Thanks so much.
Thanks very much, guys. And
Thanks for having us.
Definitely go and check that out at 53.2 from now.
Right.
Well, this lady has won a massive award, everybody, for her very impulsive and wonderful podcast. And joining us now to tell us more about that award-winning podcast is Emma Goswell. And congratulations.
Yes, well done.
Because you want to break free. I love it. Welcome to the show and congratulations on your award. An award for a podcast. This is amazing stuff.
I left it downstairs. I should have brought it up to the attic, shouldn't I? I brought it back from London by mistake. It's actually, I have to give it to the boss, unfortunately. Yeah, I tell you what, it was incredible on Thursday night, the British Podcast Awards, because we were nominated for A Positive Life, which is history of the last 40 years of HIV, really, from Terence Higgins to today. And I said to the gang beforehand, I was like, look, these awards, they don't mean anything. It's all very subjective. We probably won't win. Let's not worry about it. And then about 10 seconds before they announced the winner of the first category, which was Factual Podcast, I just had a little premonition and I moved my bag out the way so I could get to the aisle, and we were announced as being the winners. And I was literally the first person on the stage in London that night. I ran to that stage. I was like...
So what was the podcast for those that don't know?
Yes, so this was a podcast that was commissioned last year, actually, by BBC Wales, and it was made by a company called Overcoat Media. I was the assistant producer, so please don't give me all the credit, because a fantastic guy called Arlie was the main producer, Arlie Adlington. And me and Arlie worked on it together, and they got a commission from the BBC to make a series of 8 different podcasts that really told the history of HIV. So, I mean, you'll know, this is a massive subject. This is a huge history with so many twists and turns, and so much has happened since 1982. Terence Higgins passed away, or Terry as he was known to his friends. And, you know, the podcast was aimed to come out just to correlate with 50 years since he died. So it actually came out in July last year when he died. And we wanted to look at his life because, do you know what? Everybody has heard of the name Terry Higgins or Terence Higgins, haven't they? Because of the trust, because of what his friends went on to do in his name. But how much do you know about Terry Higgins' life, or the life that he lived? He grew up in the 1950s and 60s in a small Welsh town called Haverfordwest, moved away to go and join the Navy, which a lot of gay men did in those days. There was no way he could be out and proud and gay in Wales. Don't forget, it was still illegal to be gay in the 1950s and early 60s in this country. Moved to London in the 60s and 70s and 80s, and we wanted to tell the story of his life, which we did. So the 8 episodes, really, the first 2 episodes are the ones I worked on the most, and it really documented his life. And the rest tells the story of, when he died, people didn't even know what it was. It was all this disease from America, and no one had any idea. We looked through the
and
whole...
the thing is, as well, Emma, I've found over the particularly last sort of 2-3 years, following things like It's a Sin. There's been huge discourse around the U equals U conversation, which a lot of people just didn't understand because it just wasn't spoken about. And then particularly, of course, as you said, following that anniversary not too long ago, it's really important that we're having these conversations, isn't it?
Well, it's so important. And that was why I was so glad that at the Podcast Awards, we didn't just win Best Factual, we won Best Podcast of 2023.
Yeah.
Because we need more people to listen to this story, to listen to what people have had HIV, or people in our community, or people in wider communities have been going through for the last 50 years. Because, we have gone through so much in terms of research and treatments and stigma, but the stigma is still there. There is still the fear of HIV.
Definitely.
There are still people being born with HIV. And, we look at it all the way through. We look at the whole scandal with the haemophiliacs as well, and the infected blood, which has still been in the news recently. It's still ongoing. People still haven't had compensation, and looking right up to people who are young people who are living with it today, but how different it is, when we have got to a stage where U equals U and people can live with HIV and not pass it on.
I think the young people, particularly in the LGBT plus community, understand just how important it was and has been as part of our lives.
Do you know what? I don't think so. And from speaking to a lot of young people, there is a complacency that's set in, and that's the danger, isn't it? Because, and I hope that some young people who are complacent about it just go, oh, well, it's like COVID. If I get it, I'll just take medication and I'll get better and it won't really affect my life. It's still difficult to have it, and there's still stigma. And I do really hope that young people will go and listen to it, because, it is harrowing listening to gay men in particular talking about the 1980s. Nobody was left unscathed. If you didn't die, you knew close people who died. We interviewed Rupert Whittaker, who was Terry's boyfriend when he passed away, who was one of the guys who set up the charity in his name. And one of the quotes from him in the first episode, it's just so harrowing. It's like, there was a period where you would literally, and these are all young men in their prime, you'd literally go to a nightclub and you go, oh, where's Joe? He was supposed to be here tonight, and be like, Joe's dead. And you'd literally only seen him a couple of weeks ago. And people, young men predominantly, were dropping like flies. And I don't think young people appreciate just quite how horrific and the fear factor that there was around in the 1980s. And then, similar to what we had with COVID in some respects, it's Black people, queer people get forgotten, and the rest of society doesn't particularly care. So it was just stigmatized. People weren't given the treatment and weren't given the respect. They weren't given respect when they were trying to get over it, or when they were recovering, or when they were dying. People were just left in hospitals to die, and family members or boyfriends or girlfriends were not allowed to go and visit. It was a horrific part of our history. It really was.
Well, Emma, where can our viewers find the podcast to listen for themselves?
Well, it's called A Positive Life. So just search for that wherever you get your podcasts. It is on BBC Sounds. There's 8 episodes. I have to say, there's a few laughs in it, but it's pretty serious subject matter, and it will, unfortunately, make you quite angry listening to it as well. But I honestly think, if you want to educate yourself about something that people are still living with today, but has such an incredible history that's so important to our community. I really hope that people will listen to it.
Mm. And Emma, just before we let you go, why has this been so important to yourself to get this message to people?
Anyway, I felt very lucky to go actually and interview people in Wales and talk to people in a small town in Wales and find out a bit about him. And I think, you know, I never met Terry. You know, I'm so far removed from that generation, really. But I really felt that it was important to tell the story, you know, and I did face some backlash from people in Wales who didn't want Terry to be remembered for being the first person who had died from HIV and an AIDS-related illness. You know, they didn't want the town or the place to be associated with this person who was clearly gay and had died of AIDS. But I actually think, you know, hopefully we have done him and his family and his friends a service by talking about some of the joyous things that he did in his life and all the fun stuff. You know, there's so much about Terry that we don't know. Did you know, for example, that Terence Higgins had written a book about astrology?
No.
How many people know that?
Wow.
I've got my hands on a copy of it, and we got Sam Smith, our presenter, to have a look at a copy of it, and it was absolutely hilarious. That's a really funny part of the podcast, actually. Sam Smith reads the section on Taurians, and they actually say, oh, Taurians are well known for being good singers.
That's me then, because I'm a Taurian.
Oh, there we
But
go.
me as well, but it didn't work for me. I can't sing a note, but there you go.
I'm very blessed.
Well, Emma, it's an award-winning podcast, so very well done again from us two. Chuffed to bits for you. Definitely one to go and listen to as well. BBC Sounds, wherever you get your podcasts.
Thanks very much, Emma. Thank you. Well, that's it for this week's show, everybody. Unfortunately, we're now out of time, but you've been absolutely fantastic. Thanks for joining us, and make sure you check out our show on all the relevant platforms.
Yes.
Yes, indeed.
See you next week.
Thanks for watching.
Beyond Manchester.